Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans across the fruited plain, I'm delighted to have you with me. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you'd love to be on the program, I would love to have you on the program. Now, I got to talk to you about just, real world issues out there, because let's get to raw politics now. There's a lot happening. By the way, if you're in the Metro Atlanta area on my flagship station, I'm going to be with you until 7 o'clock tonight. So you can stick around. We'll talk about Georgia stuff in those hours. I want to play this for you from Richie Torres. He was on MSNBC talking about selling the Biden campaign and what they're doing.
And obviously there's a challenge of inflation, which has been a global problem. But, we have to tell the story of the Biden administration's success. We've had the fastest recovery from COVID of any major economy in the world. The president is addressing the cost of living. The Bronx has among the highest rates of diabetes. Capping the price of insulin at $35 a month is a game changer and a lifesaver for the people of the Bronx. President Biden created 15 million jobs compared to 2.9 million lost under Donald Trump. Donald Trump claims that he's in favor of cutting taxes. He imposed the largest tax increase in New York City in recent history. The loss of SALT deductibility cost our state $15 billion in revenue. So New Yorkers are paying more in taxes and receiving fewer services because of Donald Trump.
By the way, that SALT deduction, state and local taxes, it's something that's deeply popular with Republicans and helps them get through reconciliation by getting rid of it. And God bless Donald Trump for supporting it. The left hates it. It's driven people out of New York and California. Here's the reality. This is from Fox News, new polling. Of the 55% who are not traveling, 70 for Memorial Day, 73% don't have enough money to do so. 15% don't have enough time. In 2010, the last time the question was asked, just half of the voters who weren't going away said money was the issue, only 51%. Money also plays a big role among those who are going away. Nearly 3/4 say higher prices are affecting their travel plans, including nearly 1/3 who said prices matter a great deal. In general, the poll also finds that over 8 in 10 say gas prices are a problem for their family. 49% say gas prices are a major problem. Grocery prices are an even greater concern. 89% say it's a problem. 62% say it's a major problem. But wait, there's more. This is from USA Today. John Pike's biggest fear is ending up on the street. For years, the retired 79-year-old Madison, Wisconsin resident has barely made ends meet with no discretionary income to speak of. Most of a Social Security check of $1,578 goes to rent. At $1,220, that's more than 77% of his monthly income. Between the rising cost of food prices since the pandemic and his prescription medicine, there's hardly anything left. When his lease expires in September, the rent on his apartment, where he's lived for 24 years, will go up to $1,600, more than he can afford. My big worry is that I may be homeless again, who's held a series of jobs, included as a translator and a programmer. His fear is well-founded. Pike experienced homelessness in the 1980s after losing his job. Like more than 50% of Americans, he's a paycheck away from a disaster. The U.S. experienced a 12% increase in homelessness from 2022 to 23 as rents soared and pandemic resources evaporated, according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Pike is a registered independent, says he generally voted for Democrats, but this November he's unsure if he'll vote at all given his experience with rent and economic hardship. Inflation and the economy have long worried American voters, polling shows, but as housing costs continue to be the biggest driver of core inflation, renters are feeling increasingly disillusioned with politicians. In some swing states, which are critical to President Biden's reelection, rental costs have more than doubled in the past 4 years. In fact, and this is the nugget you got to pay attention to, 6 out of the top 10 markets and 34 of the top 100 markets with the largest rent increases are in swing states, according to a USA Today analysis. This is where the rubber meets the road, y'all. And this is a problem. The Biden administration, they're attempting to pivot and blame private equity for buying up houses and jacking up rents. And by the way, there is some truth to private equity companies like Blackstone and others have bought up a lot of property. And they've converted people who would otherwise be home buyers into renters, except this guy they profiled in USA Today, he's been a renter for 24 years. And in fact, there are still houses out there. The problem is that mortgages are now so high. Mortgage rates are the highest they've been in 30 years. Costs a whole lot more to buy a house. Let me give you the polling right now. This is the current polling. CNN, Trump up 6. NPR, Biden up 2. Tip poll, Biden up 2. Reuters, tie. Yahoo News, tie. Fox News, Trump up 1. Harvard Harris, Trump up 6. Morning Consult, Trump up 1. Quinnipiac, Biden up 1. Marquette, a tie. Here are the notable ones. Fox News and Quinnipiac have both, in the last 4 years, had a seeming bias to the Democrats. They've overplayed the Democrats' strength. And yet Fox has Trump up 1, and Quinnipiac has Biden up 1. The Real Clear Politics average has Trump up 0.9%. In the swing states, he's doing even better. In May of 2016, Trump was up 0.2 points. In May of 2020, Biden was up 5.5 points the same time. Trump's now up 0.9 points. Again, be dismissive of the polling all you want, but the problem are the trend lines for the Democrats. Donald Trump is doing better polling now than he's ever done, ever. Not since he's better than he's done since 2020 or since 2016, ever. And it's stuff like this. It's rent. Remember the candidate in New York he ran and his party name was the rent's too damn high? That's kind of what it is right now. On top of that, there's this from Bloomberg. The latest Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll found that half of battleground state voters are worried about violent clashes once the results are in. The shares of Republicans and Democrats who harbor worries about violence are roughly equal, and independents are even more concerned about the election devolving into harmful chaos. There are reasons for the election anxiety. Trump's efforts to overturn his loss to Biden 4 years ago culminated in the January 26th riot by his supporters at the U.S. Capitol. Notice Bloomberg does not say insurrection. This year has been marked by threats against election workers and elected officials, as well as demonstrations on college campuses over the Israel-Hamas war that sometimes devolved into violent clashes. U.S. adversaries like Russia and China have sought to interfere in U.S. politics since the 2016 election. Both Biden and Trump campaigns have sought to motivate their supporters by attacking their opponents. While that might be an effective campaign tactic, it's not turning down the political temperature. Negative campaigning can be powerful. The political climate is bound to only get more heated as the campaigning gets more intense and the contest grows closer. But I want to jump back I want to jump back to what I talked about yesterday from Harvard Harris. A slight plurality of Americans actually don't like Trump supporters, the MAGA right, as it's referred to in the polling. Plurality of Americans, they don't like them. But those same voters really hate the campus protesters, the Antifa activists, the Hamas supporters. So your middle-of-the-road voter, they don't like any of these groups, but they like the MAGA Republicans more than the left. And it's those campus protesters and Antifa activists who are causing all the problems, doing all the harassment, putting the pipe bombs places, harassing businesses, showing up at churches. It's the left. So when you take this contemptibleness for the left, and then you layer the progressive politics on top of it. I mentioned earlier, go back to Oregon. In Oregon, a young man decided to identify as a woman because he wasn't a very good track athlete on the boys' team. So he identified as a girl, kept his body parts, and ran as a girl, just a boy with long hair. And he beat the girls in a track match. And the crowd booed. The crowd was furious. The parents were furious. And these are good progressives in Oregon. This wasn't a conservative enclave. These were good progressives in Oregon, and they were furious at the boy beating the girls. You survey black voters, boy, there is a backlash against transgenderism in this country. They're furious with it. They've had enough. Hispanic voters, too. Now, so you've layered on the contempt for the campus protesters and then the progressive politics, and now the reality. The economy, rent, groceries, gas. That's why things aren't looking good for Joe Biden. And do you know what the response has been? I'm continued to be baffled by this. The response from the left is that gosh darn it, if we just lecture Americans that actually things are good, they're going to believe it. If we just get in their faces with what we think are the facts, they're finally going to realize. They're finally going to realize they're stupid and Joe Biden is good for them. The simple fact is that grocery prices are still high. Some prices have come down, but they're still elevated from where they were. It still strains Americans. This lecturing tone from the left on grocery prices, among other things, it's not actually helping the left. It's hurting the left because it denies basic empathy. And the empathy is the problem. It denies basic empathy. It denies that the left recognizes that people are having problems paying their bills, paying the rent, buying their groceries. It denies people's concerns and makes people feel like their concerns are being put down, that they are being bullied and badgered, that they are being harassed by people who don't understand what's actually going on, by people who don't actually understand the lives that Americans lead. I mentioned that professor. I'm scrolling through my phone here, trying to find this guy's tweet. It was an absurd tweet that was grounded in the idea of credentialism, something else that bothers so many middle-class people. This idea that I'm smarter than you, so you should listen to me. And it just continues to rub people the wrong way when they hear people say these sorts of things. It reminds them of just how out of touch so many people on the left are right now. Professor here, this is it. So this is a thread on Twitter of someone complaining about grocery prices. Professor here. This guy is a sociologist, by the way. Food quality is much better under President Biden due to new FDA rules. You may not like it, but it's best for the environment and for business. Yes, prices have risen a little bit, but that's how it shakes out. Deal with it. Professor here, yes, you can't make ends meet and your grocery bill's too high, but your food quality is safer thanks to Joe Biden. It's a tone deafness and an arrogance. It's what the Biden team is dealing with. And in their bubble, everyone tells them they're right. Everyone affirms them. And the result is that more and more Americans are either going to sit on the sidelines or they're going to vote Donald Trump. And you know what's going to happen when Trump wins? There will be riots from the left. And Americans will continue to hate the left with burning, burning hatred, because the only elections they believe are legitimate are the ones they win, and everything else must be delegitimized. They're doing it with the Supreme Court. They did it with Trump in 2016. They've done it with the Senate. They do it with the states. They continue to delegitimize things they don't control, and the American people are starting to have enough of this and realizing they've just become, on the left, a bunch of bullies.
Blinds.com Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. The phone number, 877-973-7425, if you want to be on the program. There is a new Amtrak route in America. It goes from Minneapolis, St. Paul to Chicago. You know, they keep toying with the idea of making one from Atlanta to Nashville. I would be intrigued by that. You leave downtown Atlanta by my office and you show up in downtown Nashville, and they claim the route would be as long to drive. There is something to be said about having my car there, but this one, they're touting this. It's essentially downtown St. Paul, Minnesota to downtown Chicago. Takes an hour and a half to fly that route, actually less than an hour and a half. It only takes 6 hours to drive it, plus bathroom breaks. I don't have a problem if you want to use the train. I don't. My problem is that so many of the people who want to use the train think the rest of us should want to use the train as well. I would rather go to the airport. You go to the airport an hour ahead of time. You get on your hour and a half flight, and then you leave the airport midway. Not even O'Hare. You're still at worst maybe 4 hours. And if it's a day trip, I mean, God bless you, 7 hours to get there, 7 hours to come back at a minimum. At a minimum. It's no guarantee. That's the minimum travel time on this route. And people on the left are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This is so wonderful. We can get rid of cars and planes and save the environment, except it's deeply inefficient. And it's a diesel engine train, so it's not like it's running on unicorn farts. And it takes longer than to drive. It's for years they've tried to do this train from like where I live up to Atlanta, and literally it's when I get in my car on a normal day, it's like an hour 15 minutes to my office, hour to the airport, and they keep saying it would be wonderful. It would be a 2.5 to 3 hour train ride. It's like, why? Why would you people want to do this? I don't get the train zealots out there who think the rest of us should get them. You love them, good. I'm intrigued by trains, but not on a regular basis. Hillsdale College wants your opinion on something other than trains. They want your opinion on the Electoral College. There's a move by states, and there were some Republican states that were flirting with it, including my state. They finally decided not to go along with it, but progressive states want to change the way the president is selected. So the founders came up with the Electoral College because they knew that if they didn't do the Electoral College method, candidates would essentially focus on population centers in really big states. And smaller states, swingier states, they would just be ignored by both sides. So they came up with the Electoral College so that the individual states couldn't be taken for granted. Hillsdale College wants to know your opinion in a presidential selection survey at ericforhillsdale.com. Some states want to do an interstate compact, and it would bind their state to the popular vote. So if their state, for example, voted for Joe Biden, but the national vote went for Donald Trump, they would be forced to vote for Trump. What do you think? ericforhillsdale.com. Tell them what you think of the presidential selection survey at ericforhillsdale.com.
I'm James McComb, reporting live from home in my bathrobe and slippers. Tonight, we're talking Dunkin' Polar Peppermint Coffee. Gene's here with the latest. Gene, do you copy?
The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be.
Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, let's go to the phones. James, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric, I've written to Pete Buttigieg about this. You were talking about trains earlier. Use the land that the interstates are on right now and put bullet trains right between them. I mean, it sounds like a novel idea to me. I mean, the land is already there. There's enough room between the 8 lanes, to run the bullet trains between them. I don't understand why they don't, investigate
they're actually, I actually know the answer to this question. One is the curves in the road are 2 degrees too fast for the bullet trains. They would have to slow down so much that they wouldn't be efficient because of the angle of attack into the curb if they were at speed. But the other one is you're not allowed to reappropriate the space between the lanes. They're only under federal transportation law to be used for roads themselves and infrastructure related to roads. So you can't plop trains down in that right-of-way space because of federal law when it came to design the roads. In the same way, you can't take like an HOV lane somewhere in the country, a high occupancy vehicle lane that some states have, and convert it into a toll road. You're prohibited from converting lanes of one kind into another under federal law. So it wouldn't work practically because of the infrastructure you'd have to put in there and because of the speed slowdown of the curbs. But also federal law itself is an impediment to doing it. Now, I will say, though, James, to your point, some states have run them on the outsides of the interstates, but in doing, they have to actually acquire that land from the federal government. And more often than not, what happens is they run those trains on state highways, not federal highways. Running them on federal highways, given the land access, acquisition, and rights-of-ways, makes it really, really complicated to do. But the biggest issue is bullet trains. The curve at the speed, your train would not be a bullet train to be able to take those curbs. Like take the TGV, which is a high-speed rail in France. It's actually quite nice, and it goes very, very fast. But the angle of the curbs is extremely low in order for it to be able to go at speed. It's just not a practical thing in this country. Likewise, I don't want to devote my time here to an entire segment on trains, but I think they're novel. I've had fun train rides in Europe, but it's a different setup, and all these people like we should be like Europe. No, we are our entire nation is the size of Europe, if not bigger. I have taken the train from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. I decided a wild hair. I'm going to take the train. It was extremely expensive flight. The train ride was actually easier, and I could get a sleeper room to myself, had my own toilet, shower, everything. And I decided, you know what? I've never taken the train. I'm going to take the train. Worst experience ever. My 12-hour trip became a 14-hour trip. I nearly missed a meeting. And, you could have a sleeper car and a train, but like every hour you're stopping in some podunk town up the East Coast. And when the train comes to a stop, you wake up because you roll in the bay. It was terrible. It was completely uncomfortable. It just was not a good experience. And it wasn't really any cheaper than like a Delta flight, except the Delta flights that week, because it was a last-minute trip, were extremely expensive. I was amazed I could get the sleeper car. I have one time come back and had to sit in the business class with just the seat, and poor lady next to me, I kept her up all night snoring, and then when she got up to leave, I thought, you know what, I can spread out. And the guy came by and yelled at me for taking up. There's nobody in the other seat, but I wasn't allowed to stretch out. The whole thing was ridiculous to me. God bless you if you like trains, though. But just don't make the rest of us have to do them. All right, Rich in Jacksonville, Florida, you're up next. Welcome.
Hey, how are you doing, Eric?
Great. What's going on?
I'll make this quick. I'm just wondering why the FBI was so quick to jump on parents and Christians, and even this Graceland thing. You saw it took one day for them to get on it, but then when we're talking about these protesters condemning America, calling for death to Americans, why we didn't see anything from them there? And I'll just leave it at that. That's all really I have to ask.
Yeah, okay. Good point. One of this is jurisdictional stuff. And you got to keep that in mind. There is a difference between the state and the federal government. They are, I am told very reliably from Republican members of Congress, they are actually looking into the funding behind the scenes. The FBI is the funding for these campus protests. And they've done it very quietly because of, well, the sensitivities, you might say, of some of the Democrats. But they're actually looking into it. There have now been 2 press reports about the investigation they're conducting. And they actually are pursuing possible criminal charges against some of these outside groups that are actually foreign agents that haven't registered as such. I would stay tuned on that. Now, I'm actually, so I wasn't going to talk about, I was going to talk about this UCLA story, but I won't do that now. I'm fascinated by this story out of Memphis and Graceland. I have never been to Graceland. I've been by Graceland. My sister lives just north of Memphis, Tennessee. So I've been by there. I have friends who are huge Elvis fans. In fact, so there is a there's a little pizza restaurant near where I live. And this pizza restaurant, the owner of the pizza restaurant, her parents were diehard Elvis fans. And when she was little, her birthday was on Elvis's birthday, and her parents always celebrated her birthday with Elvis, and she resented Elvis like hell because of it. The result was she finally came to terms with Elvis, and now Elvis is all over her store. She got Elvis everything in this pizza restaurant. It's a great pizza restaurant, Ingleside Pizza, fantastic. But I digress. The Elvis story out of Graceland is fascinating because a group out of Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, attempted to foreclose on Graceland this week. They claimed Lisa Marie Presley took out a $3.8 million loan through their company and used Graceland as collateral. There's just a problem. The actual situation is this company doesn't appear to exist. In fact, when reporters started making inquiries to the company turned off its phones. It's a wild story. So Riley Keough is an actress. She is Lisa Marie Presley's daughter. She is the sole heir to Elvis Presley's fortune. She had a brother. Her brother died of a drug overdose before her mom, Lisa Marie Presley, died. And Riley Keough is now in charge of the estate. She is Elvis Presley's granddaughter. And she sued in Memphis because she found the notary public in Florida who notarized the deed of trust that Lisa Marie Presley signed over to this company, except there's a problem. The notary in Florida says not only did the notary never meet Lisa Marie Presley, the notary never notarized this document. The notary has no knowledge of any of this, no record of any of this, and says, I would remember if I worked with Lisa Marie Presley, which I never did. So they go to court. Yesterday, they go to court. And the company that claims to have lent the money to Lisa Marie Presley never showed up. Never showed up. So the judge throws out the sale. But now it gets more wild. The company now says, this is $3.8 million we're talking about. A spokesman for the company tells the media that we're abandoning all of our claims because this is clearly more complicated because it happened in Tennessee, the notarization happened in Florida, we're a company in Missouri, and so we would have to file the lawsuit in all 3 places, which is simply not true, by the way. And then closes up shop, won't talk to anybody else, claims there are other people involved. Now, here's the catch. There's no record of this business existing, this private lending company. They don't appear to be a registered organization in Missouri. They don't have like a Delaware corporation. They don't have anybody. Nobody knows how to get in touch with them. It really is looking more and more like a scam. It actually looks like this company was gutsy enough, I'll say, to try to foreclose on Graceland with a forged notary affidavit from Lisa Marie Presley, and had her daughter, they came within a day of being able to foreclose. Had the daughter not filed suit, nothing would happen. Now, so here's the catch. This was referred by Riley Keough's lawyers now to the Attorney General in Tennessee. Since it's across state lines, the Attorney General in Tennessee, looking into it, saying this doesn't add up, has now gotten the FBI involved, because if you do an interstate investigation, you're supposed to get the FBI involved. Now, you should keep in mind there are different divisions of the FBI. And while the FBI in Washington, D.C. and its executive leadership may have all sorts of problems, FBI agents at the state level are pretty competent, meaning well, good people who just want to enforce the law and keep people safe. You shouldn't blackball your standard police officer for a crazy police officer any more than you should blackball a FBI agent because of the idiots in Washington, D.C. But what a wild story that Graceland was almost foreclosed on by a company that doesn't appear to exist, that no one can get in touch with, and the notary who was used says the notary was not involved. That's not the notary public and has no knowledge of doing anything with Lisa Marie Presley. It does make you wonder if this has happened to other people around the country. If you're that brazen to try it with Elvis Presley's estate, I got to imagine that there are other estates out there that weren't as prominent as Elvis, that didn't have the legal representation that could come with Elvis' estate to do it. I'm amazed by this. Now, let's go full circle back to the caller's point on the FBI. Merrick Garland is a clown, and James Comey, I think, destroyed the reputation of the FBI. Comey is actually on television. He's on MSNBC, of course, saying, of course this trial in New York is serious for Trump. I cannot believe the revelations that came out at trial. None of the revelations are relevant to what actually happened, other than Michael Cohen admitting he stole some of the money when Trump is claimed to, or is alleged to have known where every penny went. Michael Cohen says, no, actually he didn't because I stole money from him. But you got to be able to be smart enough to distinguish between a state FBI office, the FBI office in Memphis, Tennessee, and Washington, D.C. You got to be able to distinguish between them. I will say, though, Republicans in Congress tell me the FBI, the good portion, the investigatory agents of the FBI around the country, they are investigating the funding of these protests. Because it's very notable that there's a growing belief that the Chinese might have funded some of them. And a number of them are not registered foreign agents. And one of the things that both Republicans and Democrats alike have taken very seriously in the last 2 decades is the foreign registered agent law. If you work on behalf of a foreign government, you must register with the federal government. And if you don't, you get in big trouble. I got a friend who unknowingly was helping a foreign nation and got in trouble. And it was very clear he didn't know he was helping the foreign nation. So he got a smack on the wrist, and that was about it. I know someone else who very clearly knew they were helping a foreign government and got in big trouble. If these students for Free Palestine and the like are taking money from foreign governments and then funneling that money into campus protests for the Hamas cause, there's a Foreign Registered Agent Act violation. And the FBI, according to Republicans in Congress, is quietly investigating, and there's a growing body of evidence that these may be foreign agents violating the FARA Act, the Foreign Registered Agent Act. I'm very curious to see where this winds up, and I don't want to malign the individual good FBI agents who are going down that road and investigating, because I'm curious to see where all of this leads. Now, I mentioned having a computer when I was a kid, and I had to whack it to turn it on, and it was one of those custom-built machines. So actually, I have fond memories about that computer because it was my first computer, and it was wild to have like a 30, or actually it might have been 66 megahertz, which was blazing fast, cutting edge back in the day. And it was a PC company in Baton Rouge, Louisiana that built it, PC Warehouse, and I got to pick what I wanted, and it was a great computer. You can do the same with vision computers because, you might be tempted to, as I know so many friends who have, you go to one of the big electronic stores and you just buy the sitting on the shelf PC, the HP, the Dell, whatever. The problem is it may be more than you need or less than you need, and you're not going to know until you get it home and use. But if you call Vision Computers at 404 Compute, they're going to build you the computer that you want, the computer that you need, and the computer that lasts you. 404-COMPUTER, visioncomputers.com. And then you get their award-winning tech support, and you can call them and in 15 seconds or less get the answer to your computer problem. You don't know how to do something, you need to find a setting somewhere, they're going to guide you right there. Or they can remote in and help you with email, they can help you with your printer support, so much more. Now, here's the thing. Let's say you didn't get your computer from Vision. If you got your computer from Vision, their award-winning tech support comes with it. If you didn't, however, you can still, for $179 a year, have Vision be your tech support. They can do it for your company. They can do it for your home. They can do it for your kid at college. And in 15 seconds or less, you can get the answers to your questions. So you can be good at your job. Your kid can be a good student. And Vision can be great at computers. $179 a year, not a month. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Now, if you tell them I sent you, you're going to get an even better deal. 404-COMPUTE or VisionComputers.com. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. Those of you listening on WSB, I'll be with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Right now, Pete, you're going to be the last caller. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure.
My question is, you mentioned foreign funding, registered agents, Republicans and Democrats all being on board with dealing with that, yet AIPAC has not been designated as such and is spending money to out representatives like Thomas Massey. Love to hear your thoughts.
Right. AIPAC doesn't get any money from foreign government. It's all funded by American citizens, so it's not under the Foreign Registered Agent Act.
They may not be funded by Israel, but they certainly represent the interest of Israel.
Oh, they absolutely do. But the FARA, the Foreign Registered Agent Act, only applies if you're taking money from the foreign government. So they can lobby on behalf of good relationships with Israel, and as long as they're funded by American citizens, they don't have to. They don't have to comply with that law. The law very specifically only applies to entities that take money from a foreign government or have relational governing ties. AIPAC supports relationships between the United States and Israel. By the way, it's a great organization. Big fan of AIPAC. And AIPAC does not take money from foreign governments, nor is it doing the express governmental bidding of that foreign government. So you may say, well, they want ties with Israel and then they support Israel. Yes, they do. That's their mission. But they're not a puppet of Netanyahu. They want ties with Israel, regardless of who's in charge. They want strong relationships, and they are funded exclusively by American citizens. By myself, by the way, I should full disclosure note that I have supported AIPAC in the past because they're a fantastic organization. I like Thomas Massey, but he's wrong in the Israel situation. And AIPAC, that is their singular issue. So God bless them, and God bless Thomas Massey. But AIPAC is not a foreign agent because it's not funded by them, nor does it collaborate in direct communication with a particular government. So it is not bound by the rules of FARA. Also, they're just good people. Even when I don't always agree with them, they're great people. All right. Now, I at the end of the show here, I want to play for you this. This is from Gordon Chang. He was on Fox Business talking about China, and he's raising some alerts we should pay attention to.
They're all military-aged men, Gordon.
Yeah, well, China is building the infrastructure in the U.S. to attack us. And we know this because of what those migrants have been doing, but also that secret Chinese biological weapons facility that was found last year in Reedley, California. They had 1,000 mice that had been genetically engineered to spread disease. They had 20 pathogens at least, including the one for Ebola. So you take the migrants, they pick up the mice, they travel around the U.S., and we've got Ebola. Now, Ebola is not that transmissible, but we know that in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, this very moment, they are thinking about how to weaponize Ebola by making it more contagious.
Yes. We're not taking China as seriously as we should, and that's another reason that Donald Trump is probably going to beat Joe Biden at this point, because people are starting to get worried about this stuff, and Joe Biden has dementia and can't process this stuff. Talk to you guys tomorrow.